listen, I know what you're going through. I know how it feels when your mind is clouded with doubt, when every negative emotion just grips you and won't let go. It feels like a storm inside, doesn't it? But here's the truth. You were not created to be defined by your feelings. No, you were made to live above them, to rise above that chaos. You see, focusing on negative emotions can trap you in a cycle. But what if I told you that you don't have to let them control you? What if there's a way out? I believe there's a power that can help you break free, and today I'm going to show you how. It's time to stop giving weight to the things that try to pull you down. We're going to shift your focus today. So I want you to grab hold of this truth. Your mind is a battlefield, but it doesn't have to be a war zone. Today, we're going to change the way we think about the things that threaten to hold us back. Negative emotions are something we all face. Whether it's fear, anger, sadness, or frustration, they are a natural part of the human experience. The problem arises when we let these emotions define us, control us, or dictate how we respond to life situations. We must first acknowledge that negative emotions are not inherently wrong or something to be ashamed of. They are, in fact, normal reactions to the struggles, disappointments, and challenges we encounter in life. They are signals from our minds and bodies that something is happening within us that requires attention. What often happens, though, is that we begin to magnify these emotions and give them power over us. We start to dwell on them, replay them in our minds over and over again, and let them control our behavior. For example, you might wake up in the morning and immediately feel overwhelmed by a sense of dread or anxiety about the day ahead. Or you might have a conversation with someone and feel anger bubbling up inside you because of something they said. These emotions, if left unchecked, can begin to dominate your thoughts and actions. They can cloud your judgment, distort your perspective, and affect how you relate to others. Now, here's the truth. Negative emotions don't make you a bad person. They make you human. You're going to experience fear when you face the unknown, sadness when you lose something dear, and frustration when things don't go as planned. What matters is how you choose to respond to those emotions. Are you going to allow them to control your life, or will you choose to face them, acknowledge them, and then move beyond them? When we ignore or suppress negative emotions, we give them even more power. Pretending like they're not there doesn't make them go away. It just allows them to fester beneath the surface. In fact, many times, this leads to an even deeper sense of frustration or confusion. We don't know why we feel the way we do, so we bottle it up, and eventually the weight of those emotions becomes too heavy to bear. That's why it's so important to first acknowledge that negative emotions are part of life. We cannot deny them. We cannot push them away and hope they will disappear. We have to allow ourselves to feel them, to sit with them for a moment, and to understand why they are there. But acknowledging them doesn't mean staying stuck in them. It's about understanding the message they are trying to send. Fear often comes when we're stepping into something new or uncertain. Anger may surface when we feel disrespected or misunderstood. Sadness can arise when we experience loss or disappointment. These emotions are all telling us something about our inner world and how we are processing the events around us. So instead of running from them or getting lost in them, we need to look at them, reflect on them, and learn from them. A big part of acknowledging negative emotions is giving ourselves permission to feel them without guilt or judgment. In our society, there can be a lot of pressure to always be on, to always be happy, to always be positive, but this creates a false narrative that emotions like sadness or anger are signs of weakness or failure. We've been conditioned to believe that we need to be constantly upbeat, always smiling and never showing vulnerability. The reality is that it's okay to not be okay sometimes. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel afraid. These emotions don't define your worth. They are simply temporary states that you can move through with intention and awareness. The key is not to become enslaved by them. When we recognize that negative emotions are simply a part of life, we can stop seeing them as roadblocks or signs that something is wrong with us. We don't have to feel ashamed for feeling them. Instead, we can acknowledge them, process them, and then move forward. The longer we resist or deny what we feel, the longer we remain stuck. It's important to give ourselves the grace to feel, to breathe, and to understand that negative emotions are not permanent unless we allow them to be. By acknowledging that these emotions are real and part of life, we take away their power to control us. We begin to realize that we are not at the mercy of our feelings. Yes, they are powerful, but we are more powerful. We are not our emotions. We are the ones who choose how to respond to them. This understanding lays the foundation for moving past negative emotions and finding the peace and clarity we need to move forward. The power of choice is one of the most empowering aspects of being human. It is a gift that we often overlook, especially when we are consumed by negative emotions. It's easy to feel as though our emotions are completely out of our control, like a wave that sweeps us up and takes us wherever it wants to go. But the truth is that we always have a choice, even when it feels like we don't. We can choose what we focus on, what we believe, and how we respond to the challenges and emotions that come our way. When we face negative emotions, it's essential to remember that we are not helpless in those moments. We are not powerless. The very fact that we have the ability to choose where to focus our energy is a gift that can transform our lives. It's all about making a conscious decision to take charge of our thoughts and not allow our emotions to dictate our behavior. For example, when fear creeps in and you start to feel anxious about something you can't control, you have a choice. You can either stay in that place of fear and let it paralyze you, or you can choose to reframe your thinking and focus on what you can control. It's all too easy to spiral into a state of negative thinking when we let our emotions run wild. When we are angry or upset, it's common to replay the situation in our minds over and over again, focusing on the injustice, the frustration, or the hurt we feel. But that cycle only intensifies the negative emotions. It doesn't resolve anything. In fact, it often makes things worse. That's why the power of choice is so crucial. You get to decide whether to stay stuck in the negativity or to change your perspective and move forward. One of the ways we can exercise this power is by choosing what we focus on. It's a well-known fact that where we direct our attention shapes our reality. If you focus on everything that's going wrong, everything that's causing you pain or discomfort, that will become your world. Your emotions will reinforce those thoughts, and you will see more and more of the things that are negative. On the other hand, if you choose to focus on what's going right, the progress you've made, the things you're grateful for, and the opportunities in front of you, you begin to shift your mindset. You create a new reality, one where you are in control, not your emotions. Of course, this doesn't mean pretending that everything is perfect when it's not. It's not about ignoring the reality of the situation. Instead, it's about recognizing that your mind is a powerful tool, and how you use it can either keep you in a place of despair or help you rise above your circumstances. By choosing to focus on the positive aspects of your life, you are actively taking control of your emotions, not letting them control you. There's a significant difference between reacting to your emotions and responding to them. When we react, we allow our feelings to lead us, and often those reactions are impulsive and unchecked. We may lash out in anger, withdraw in fear, or make rash decisions in frustration. But when we choose to respond instead of react, we create space between the emotion and our action. This gives us the ability to process what we're feeling, understand why we feel that way, and choose a more thoughtful, intentional response. This is where the true power of choice lies. You may not be able to control the emotions that arise, but you can control how you channel them. You can choose to express your anger in a constructive way, to sit with your fear and analyze its source, or to acknowledge your sadness and take steps to heal. The moment you take responsibility for your emotions and your actions, you empower yourself to change the direction of your life. It's also important to recognize that making this choice doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, and like any process, it takes practice. The more you practice choosing your focus, the easier it becomes. Over time, you'll find that you are less and less affected by the negative emotions that arise. Instead of being swept away by them, you will begin to regain your balance and sense of control. When you make the choice to focus on what matters most, you begin to live intentionally. This is what it means to take control of your emotional landscape. It doesn't mean you won't experience negative emotions anymore. It just means you will no longer be a prisoner to them. You'll be able to navigate life's ups and downs with a sense of purpose, knowing that you have the power to choose your reaction to any situation. By exercising your power of choice, you reclaim your peace, your joy, and your ability to move forward with confidence. The more you practice making this choice, the more resilient you become, and the more you'll see how it shifts not only your emotions, but your entire outlook on life. Negative emotions don't define who we are. Too often we let a moment of frustration, sadness, or fear become a permanent part of our identity. We start to believe that because we feel angry, we are an angry person. Or when we experience sadness, we assume that we are weak or broken. But that's not the truth. Our emotions are fleeting, and they do not define our worth or our potential. It's crucial to understand that what you feel in a given moment doesn't mean that's who you are in your entirety. In fact, emotions are just that, emotions. They are responses to external events or internal thoughts and do not reflect our core identity. When we find ourselves in the midst of negative emotions, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking they are a reflection of who we truly are. We might think, I'm a failure because I feel inadequate, or I'll never be able to overcome this because I'm too afraid. But what we often fail to recognize is that emotions are not fixed parts of our identity. They are temporary states, and they pass just as quickly as they arrive. The truth is, you are so much more than your feelings. Your character, your values, and your purpose are far deeper than any emotion that rises within you. For example, you may experience moments of self-doubt, but that doesn't mean you're a doubtful person. You may feel overwhelmed with fear, but that doesn't make you a fearful person. Emotions are responses, not definitions. They are reactions to situations, not a reflection of who you are at your core. When we allow our emotions to define us, we rob ourselves of the ability to grow beyond them. We become trapped in a cycle of self-judgment and shame, believing that our emotions are who we are rather than something we experience. But we need to shift our mindset and realize that it's okay to feel these emotions. What matters is how we respond to them and how we don't let them dictate the trajectory of our lives. One of the keys to breaking free from this pattern is to remind ourselves that feelings are temporary. Emotions come and go, and they don't last forever. There will be days when you feel discouraged, and there will be days when you feel empowered. There will be moments of anger and moments of peace. None of these emotions, however intense, are permanent. Just because you feel sad one day doesn't mean you will always be sad. Just because you feel fearful doesn't mean fear will always rule your thoughts. When you recognize that emotions are temporary, you give yourself the grace to experience them without being trapped by them. Another important realization is that emotions don't have the power to control our actions unless we let them. When we allow ourselves to feel something, whether it's anger, frustration, or sadness, we can still choose how we respond. For example, just because you're feeling angry doesn't mean you have to lash out or hold on to that anger for days. Just because you're feeling down doesn't mean you have to give up or wallow in it. Negative emotions are signals, but they don't have the authority to dictate how we behave. You can acknowledge the emotion, feel it fully, and then decide to move past it. It's all about understanding that these emotions do not hold the power to control your future. To move past the idea that negative emotions define you, you need to separate who you are from how you feel. It's important to start identifying yourself by your strengths, your values, and your character, rather than by your emotional states. You are not your anger. You are not your sadness. You are a person capable of growth, transformation, and healing, and that is what defines you. This shift in perspective allows you to develop resilience. When you know that your emotions don't define you, it becomes easier to bounce back from difficult situations. You don't have to stay stuck in the negativity. When you experience setbacks or moments of pain, you can process those feelings and then release them because you know they don't define your entire existence. You can look at yourself from a place of compassion, recognizing that you are not defined by your lowest points or by the moments when you feel less than your best. Ultimately, understanding that negative emotions don't define you empowers you to live a life with greater freedom. Instead of allowing emotions to keep you in a constant state of turmoil, you can choose to let them pass through you, knowing they are just temporary visitors in your mind and heart. You don't have to hold on to them. You don't have to let them shape your identity. You are not the sum of your emotional experiences. You are the sum of your decisions, your values, and your ability to rise above what life throws your way. The more you understand that negative emotions don't define who you are, the more you open yourself up to the possibility of healing, growth, and lasting peace. Shifting your perspective is one of the most powerful tools you have when dealing with negative emotions. So often we see our challenges as obstacles, things that are blocking our path, holding us back, or causing us pain. But what if instead of seeing them as roadblocks, we saw them as opportunities? What if we started to view every challenge as a chance for growth, for learning, for change? This shift in perspective has the potential to transform how we handle difficult situations and how we relate to our emotions. It's about reframing the way we think about adversity and seeing it not as a setback, but as a setup for something greater. When we encounter negative emotions, we often get stuck in a pattern of seeing everything through the lens of negativity. We might feel sad because we didn't get the promotion we wanted, or we might feel angry because someone wronged us. In these moments, it's easy to spiral into self-pity or frustration, focusing solely on the pain or disappointment of the situation. But what if we chose to look beyond the pain and ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Every challenge, every setback, and every painful moment holds within it the seed of opportunity. The question is whether or not we are willing to look for it. For example, think about a time when you faced rejection or failure. In the moment, it may have felt like a personal attack, a sign that you weren't good enough or that your dreams were out of reach. But when you reflect on it later, you may realize that the rejection forced you to grow stronger, to sharpen your skills, or to reconsider your approach. It may have led you to discover new talents or new directions that you hadn't even considered before. Challenges don't always feel like opportunities, but they can be the very things that propel us towards something better. The key to this shift in perspective is learning to separate the emotional response from the potential lesson. When we experience negative emotions, we naturally want to focus on the discomfort they bring. It's hard not to get caught up in the pain or frustration of the moment. But when we begin to view challenges as opportunities for growth, we take the power away from the negative emotions. Instead of letting them control us, we allow ourselves to see the bigger picture, to understand that setbacks are often part of the process, not the end of the road. In practical terms, this means asking ourselves different questions when faced with adversity. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me, or why am I so unlucky, we can ask, what is this teaching me? Or how can I use this situation to become better? When we ask the right questions, we begin to unlock new perspectives that change how we respond. We stop focusing on the problem itself and start focusing on the solution, the lesson, and the opportunity to grow. This perspective shift also helps us to break free from a victim mentality. It's easy to feel like a victim when things aren't going our way, when life feels unfair, or when we're overwhelmed by negative emotions. We might think that the world is against us or that we are powerless to change our circumstances. But when we choose to see every challenge as an opportunity, we take control of our lives. We stop seeing ourselves as victims of circumstance and start seeing ourselves as active participants in our own growth and success. This shift in mindset is empowering because it reminds us that we have the ability to turn any situation around. The power of shifting your perspective doesn't just apply to major life challenges. It also works in the everyday moments when we are faced with frustration, disappointment, or anger. How many times have we let a small setback ruin our entire day? Maybe we spilled coffee on our clothes, or we had an argument with a loved one. In those moments, it's easy to let the negative emotions take over, causing us to focus on the inconvenience or the frustration. But if we can train ourselves to shift our perspective, we can turn those moments into opportunities for patience, for growth, and for practicing gratitude. When we shift our perspective, we also learn to be more present in the moment. Instead of ruminating on past mistakes or worrying about what's to come, we begin to focus on what we can control right now. We take a step back, breathe, and decide how we want to respond. This mindset helps us to approach life with a sense of calm and clarity, knowing that we are not defined by the circumstances around us. We are defined by how we choose to respond to those circumstances. By shifting our perspective, we also start to embrace change more readily. We understand that change is a natural part of life and that it often brings with it new opportunities. Change can be scary, especially when it's unexpected or unwanted, but if we approach it with an open mind and heart, we begin to see that it's often a blessing in disguise. Every new chapter, every new challenge, and every new experience carries the potential for something greater than we could have imagined. The more we practice shifting our perspective, the easier it becomes. With time, we learn to approach every situation with the mindset that there is always something to learn, something to gain, and something to be grateful for. Negative emotions lose their grip on us because we understand that they are temporary and we choose to see beyond them. This shift in perspective doesn't just change how we deal with negative emotions, it changes how we experience life itself. We begin to see the world in a new light, one where every challenge is an opportunity for growth and every setback is just a stepping stone to something greater. Reframing your thoughts is one of the most essential skills you can develop when it comes to overcoming negative emotions. When we experience difficult emotions, it's easy to fall into a pattern of thinking that only reinforces those feelings. We might think, I'll never get through this, or I'm not strong enough to handle this. These kinds of thoughts create a cycle of negativity that makes it even harder to move forward. But the power to break this cycle lies in our ability to change the way we think about our circumstances. Reframing is about looking at the same situation from a different perspective, one that empowers us instead of discouraging us. One of the first steps in reframing your thoughts is recognizing the automatic negative patterns that often arise when we're struggling emotionally. Our minds are wired to focus on the negative and what's wrong, what could go wrong, and the things that cause us stress. This tendency is a survival mechanism that's been ingrained in us over time. But in today's world, it can often work against us. When we're overwhelmed with emotions like fear, frustration, or sadness, our minds tend to magnify the negative aspects of our lives. This can make the situation feel more intense and insurmountable than it actually is. Reframing begins when we notice these negative thoughts and consciously choose to shift them. For example, when you're feeling anxious about an upcoming event or situation, your mind may automatically go to worst case scenarios. You may think, what if I fail? Or what if I make a fool of myself? These thoughts, while natural, only serve to heighten your anxiety and make it harder to move forward. But reframing those thoughts could look like this. What if I succeed? What if I learn something valuable no matter the outcome? By asking yourself different questions, you open up the possibility for a different outcome. Instead of staying stuck in a spiral of fear, you shift your focus to the opportunities that lie ahead. Reframing is not about denying reality or pretending that things are perfect. It's not about wearing a rose-colored glasses mindset where everything is seen as good when it's not. Instead, reframing is about expanding your perspective so you can see the bigger picture. It's about recognizing that challenges, even negative ones, are part of life's process. Just because things are difficult right now doesn't mean they will always be this way. In fact, many of the toughest moments in our lives turn out to be the ones that teach us the most and lead us to greater growth and understanding. Reframing allows us to recognize that even in difficulty, there is potential for positive change. A powerful way to reframe your thoughts is to challenge the assumptions you make about a situation. Often we assume that something is impossible, unfair, or a sign that we are doomed to fail. But these are assumptions, not facts. When you find yourself thinking, I can't do this, or this is too much, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this really true? Are there other ways to look at this situation? Often we create limitations in our minds that don't exist in reality. Reframing allows us to break free from these self-imposed limits and open up new possibilities. By shifting your thinking, you begin to see opportunities where you once saw only obstacles. Another key part of reframing is recognizing the role of language in shaping our thoughts. The words we use, both in our inner dialogue and when speaking to others, have a powerful impact on how we experience the world. For example, if you constantly tell yourself, this is hard, I can't handle it, you are reinforcing a belief that you are incapable. But if you shift your language to something like, this is a challenge, but I am capable of handling it, you immediately change the way you approach the situation. Language shapes our mindset and our emotions. So being mindful of the words we use can make a significant difference in how we feel. Another way to reframe your thoughts is by practicing gratitude. When negative emotions take hold, it's easy to focus only on what's going wrong. But when we actively look for things to be grateful for, we shift our focus from scarcity to abundance. Gratitude helps us to reframe our mindset by reminding us of the positive aspects of our lives. Even in the most difficult moments, there is always something to be grateful for. Whether it's a supportive friend, a lesson learned, or even just the fact that we are still standing. Gratitude helps us to reframe our challenges as opportunities for growth rather than seeing them as insurmountable obstacles. Reframing also requires us to embrace the idea that we are not victims of our circumstances. Too often, when we experience negative emotions, we feel as though we are at the mercy of the situation, like we have no control over what happens next. But reframing reminds us that we have the power to choose how we respond to our circumstances. No matter what happens, we have the ability to change the narrative. We can choose to see the situation differently and find a way to move forward with purpose and clarity. Reframing your thoughts also involves cultivating a mindset of resilience. Life will always present challenges, and negative emotions are inevitable. But how we respond to those emotions determines our level of resilience. When we reframe our thoughts, we stop seeing challenges as threats and start seeing them as opportunities to build strength. Resilience doesn't mean avoiding negative emotions or pretending that everything is okay. It means facing those emotions head on, processing them, and then using them as fuel for personal growth. Reframing helps us to become more resilient because it encourages us to see each setback as part of the journey, not the end of the road. Taking action is one of the most powerful ways to combat negative emotions and transform your mindset. When we feel overwhelmed, anxious, or upset, our natural instinct is often to retreat, to avoid facing the discomfort, or to stay stuck in our emotions. We might think that by ignoring or suppressing what we're feeling, the negative emotions will eventually go away. However, this approach rarely works. In fact, avoiding action often makes the negative feelings worse because they remain unaddressed and unresolved. The key to moving beyond negative emotions is to take purposeful, deliberate action that shifts our focus and gets us back into a position of control. Taking action doesn't mean you need to make huge, life-altering changes every time you experience a negative emotion. In fact, small, intentional actions can be just as effective, if not more so. When you're feeling stuck in negative emotions, it can be helpful to start with simple steps that allow you to regain momentum. For example, if you're feeling anxious, instead of staying in your head and spiraling into worry, take a walk or engage in some physical activity. Exercise is a powerful way to break the cycle of anxiety, as it releases endorphins that naturally boost your mood and help to clear your mind. By doing something physical, you interrupt the negative emotional state and create a shift that allows you to approach the situation from a new angle. Similarly, when you're feeling sad or overwhelmed, doing something productive can provide a sense of accomplishment that lifts your spirits. It might be as simple as cleaning up a small area of your home, organizing your desk, or tackling a task you've been putting off. The act of completing something, no matter how small, creates a sense of progress and forward motion. When we are overwhelmed by negative emotions, we often feel stuck and powerless, but action, no matter how small, reminds us that we are still capable of making a difference in our own lives. By taking action, we reclaim our sense of agency and control, which is incredibly empowering when we feel at the mercy of our emotions. Taking action can also involve confronting the source of the negative emotion directly. For example, if you are angry or upset because of a conflict with someone, taking action might mean having an honest conversation with that person. Avoiding the situation might seem easier in the short term, but it only prolongs the negative feelings and allows resentment to build. On the other hand, facing the situation head on and addressing it with a calm and open mindset helps to release the tension and allows you to move past the emotion. This is not always easy, but it is incredibly freeing. By taking action to resolve the issue or to express your feelings, you take away the power that the negative emotion has over you. Taking action also involves setting goals, even small ones that shift your focus away from the negativity. Setting a goal gives your mind something constructive to focus on. When we are in a negative emotional state, our minds can become consumed by the feelings we're experiencing, and it becomes difficult to see beyond the immediate moment. Setting a goal provides a sense of direction and purpose, helping to redirect your energy towards something positive. It doesn't matter if the goal is big or small, as long as it serves to move you forward. The process of taking action toward a goal step by step creates momentum, and momentum creates change. This shift in focus from the negative emotion to the positive action gives us a sense of hope and reminds us that we are capable of making progress even when it feels like we're stuck. Another powerful aspect of taking action is that it allows us to be proactive rather than reactive. When we are consumed by negative emotions, it's easy to become reactive, letting our feelings dictate our behavior. We may lash out in anger, withdraw in sadness, or spiral deeper into fear and anxiety. But when we take intentional action, we become proactive. Instead of letting the emotion control us, we take control of our response. For example, if you're feeling overwhelmed by stress at work, instead of letting it build up and increase your anxiety. Taking action might mean setting boundaries with your time, asking for help, or breaking down the tasks into manageable chunks. By taking action to manage the stress, you regain control of the situation and break the cycle of overwhelm. Taking action also has the power to shift our mindset from one of helplessness to one of empowerment. Negative emotions often stem from a sense of powerlessness. When we feel like we have no control over a situation, we become consumed by the emotion and it feels impossible to move forward. However, when we take action, even in small ways, we are reminded that we do have control over how we respond to our emotions and circumstances. Taking action, no matter how simple, reinforces the belief that we are capable and empowered. This mindset shift is key to overcoming negative emotions and building resilience. Furthermore, taking action can be a form of self-care. When we are dealing with negative emotions, it's easy to neglect our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. However, taking action to care for ourselves, whether it's through exercise, healthy eating, journaling, or spending time with loved ones, helps to restore balance and perspective. Engaging in activities that nourish us physically, emotionally, and mentally creates a foundation of strength that allows us to cope more effectively with negative emotions. By taking the time to care for ourselves, we build resilience and create a buffer against the emotional turbulence that life inevitably brings. Finally, taking action is a way to break free from the inertia that often accompanies negative emotions. When we feel stuck or overwhelmed, our instinct is to withdraw, to stop moving, to isolate ourselves. But this only deepens the negative feelings, creating a cycle of inaction that reinforces our emotions. Taking action breaks that cycle. Whether it's taking a walk, reaching out to a friend, or simply getting out of bed and starting your day, action propels us forward and creates momentum. Momentum creates change, and change creates the possibility of new outcomes. Taking action may not always immediately change your feelings, but it always changes your perspective. When we take action, we remind ourselves that we are not at the mercy of our emotions. We have the power to act, to change, and to move forward.